Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's so good to see you in the comments section. You guys are all pumped and ready to go. My goodness. I love that so much. I hope you guys are doing okay. Hopefully, your Friday's going well so far. I was sitting here going over some of the research, and I'm thinking, you guys are probably well aware of these kind of people. I was reading a research article on dramatic personalities. And this is just kind of like my pleasure reading. I have different kind of reading periods. I have reading for knowledge, then I have reading to kind of further develop my clinical skills and my understanding. Then I do reading to boost what I already know, because every time you turn around somewhere in psychology in this big field, sometimes daily things are changing, statistics are changing, diagnoses are changing. It's just a lot. So I have different reasons why I read. And so before I came on tonight, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the research. Really, I'm trying to make sure that I haven't missed anything. And in this one research article that I was reading, it's interesting. One of the research studies, I'll mention it tonight. One of the research studies highlighted that dramatic behavior is a common challenge for society today. And commonly, dramatic people run in families. Now, you tell me if you guys really believe in this. Okay, this is what the research is saying for today's dramatic people. We have those dramatic people that are dramatic in the sense of, I like fights, I like chaos, I like getting things going. I'm very energized and energetic when something goes wrong. I love being a part of that. And then you have those personalities that are clearly unstable. They are clearly dramatizers. They are naysayers. They are gossipers. And this is just who they are. It's not necessarily they enjoy it. They just tend to be those kind of people who are mentally unstable, emotionally unstable, and they like to get things going because it redirects, their attention from themselves onto others. And they have a lot of deep-seated issues on the inside that they haven't gotten taken care of, And so this research, a study that was done, had quoted a book, and the book is called Addiction to Chaos. You're going to want to check that out. It is by Dr. Scott Lyons. Okay. I'm going to put it here for you so that you can see it. It's called Addiction to, what did I say? Addiction to Chaos. Addiction to Chaos. And it's by Dr. Scott Lyons. Okay. And the book is interesting. I haven't read it front to back, but I had it, one of my colleagues had it on their bookshelf. And I'm like sitting on her couch, skimming through this book. And really what he is saying in this entire book is that people who are dramatic actually have a nervous system that enjoys the activity that goes on in the system, in your system, and all of our systems, when something is wrong. That is technically what his whole book is about. He just puts it in really good language. You read that book and you're like, oh, yeah, I know a person who's just like this. Oh, that's what she was doing. So you might want to check that book out. I'm totally not promoting his book for any other reason other than it is helpful to read. Okay. So let's jump in. Okay, guys, let me just start with, what is wrong with these individuals? Why are they this way? Have you ever paused and asked yourself, why does my mother, why does my sibling, why does my father, why does my cousin tend to enjoy the instability of my life, the instability of the times, the instability of other people's worlds? Why do they seem drawn to that? Those people who, if somebody says, I lost a loved one, or they say something like, my cousin died or my sister died. And the person says, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. But you can hear under that. I know you guys have had to have come close to somebody like this in your life. You tell them something terrible is happening. My husband and I are getting a divorce. We loved each other. It was great. It was wonderful. And then he changed. And so now we're getting a divorce. Some people will say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. You want to talk about it? And they're like this with you. And they're like, I want to hear all the details. And, the disposition is so obvious that they don't really want to console you. They really don't feel sorry for you. They actually feel like, oh, thank God, there's somebody that's as miserable as I am. Those kind of individuals is kind of what we're talking about tonight. And I'm going to break this down in a way where you will get the clinical data, the clinical information, the clinical name for this, and you will be able to describe this in clinical terms rather than just saying that person is so dramatic, right? We know people who are dramatic. They tend to be very unstable emotionally, psychologically, and physiologically, because here's what happens. Their central nervous system increases, the activity in the central nervous system increases. And when something bad happens to somebody else, or when they become the center of attention, they are wonderful. Their system kicks in overdrive, they feel that kick of having this high level of energy in their blood, and they feel stimulated, and they feel strong, and they feel excited. And, they're not really nervous and anxious. They are very interested in what's going on. And this is how they get their energy and their stimulation for the week. You've got those dramatic people. They love to see when things are wrong. A couple weeks ago, I was on the turnpike going to a shopping mall way out. And so I was on the turnpike for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And there was this accident. And, there's always construction anywhere on the highway. It just derails traffic. The workers have cones out everywhere, and speed limits, and, the list goes on. The speed limit goes down. Well, anyway, everyone has to get into one lane and slow down. And once I got so many miles down the turnpike, I recognized that, oh my God, this is construction and a terrible, terrible car accident. And when I say terrible, I say terrible. Okay. Car flipped on its head, right? So flipped upside down. I've never seen an SUV flipped upside down in my entire life. So that was awful. And then glass was everywhere. It was a 4-car accident. So the whole turnpike was just completely a mess. And there's a person in front of me. They're literally going. The work crews reduced the speed limit from 70 to 40. This person was literally going 5 miles per hour. Why? Not because they're trying to mind the people who are on the side of the road, not because they're trying to make sure they don't run over glass, or, they were literally going 5 miles per hour because they wanted to see what happened. They were so nebby, that they wanted to see what was going on. I think it's natural for us to just take a look and say, oh my God, that's an accident. I hope everybody's okay, and keep moving. Not this person. The traffic was way up ahead of them, and everybody from me back was going turtle speed because this person was in front of me, holding me up, going 5 miles per hour because they wanted to see the accident. You could literally see in their back window that their head was like, they're like going around like, I can't see. And then there was somebody in the passenger side who was taking pictures. And I'm like, oh my God. And so you have those people who, they get interested, there's this turbocharge in their system when something goes wrong in somebody else's life, in their own life, right? Where it involves everybody else, those dramatic people. It can't just be a problem between them and you. It's a problem between you and them, but then about 20 other people who know you, because they can't keep a secret. They can't respect your privacy. They don't know how to mind their business. They don't know how to stop gossiping. And they clearly have a disregard for your right to privacy, to space. The list goes on. These kind of dramatic people are hard to live with. Neighbors can sometimes be this way, right, guys? Neighbors can have what Dr. Lyons calls ND. Okay, I'm going to put this in here. ND, need for drama. There you go. That's what Dr. Lyons calls it ND, a need for drama, you know, and it's really kind of described in psychology as a personality trait. It's a personality trait. You know, it may not be narcissism, it may not be a sociopath, but there's a personality trait here that sometimes is subclinical. Remember, guys, I talked about subclinical in my last couple of live chats. Subclinical means that the clinical criteria is up here, and you have to have a bunch of symptoms in order to get to that clinical criteria. But what if you have a bunch of behaviors and mindsets and attitudes that only get you to about here, right? We call that subclinical, because we can't diagnose you, we can't treat you, and you're not showing symptoms that would cause me to write you a prescription. So need for drama is like a subclinical personality trait. And what happens with these individuals is they have to have excitement. They have to have drama. They cannot live without drama. It has to be a part of their daily life, you know, like your coffee, your bagels in the morning, your donuts, you know. I'm highly addicted to bagels. I really am. But, you know, we can kind of go without having bagels every day and coffee, right, guys? A person who has a need for drama spazzes out completely. They can't go one day without bagels. They can't go one day without their coffee, their donuts. You know, the whole world's going to know that they're mad. They have this intense emotional reaction to almost everything. You've seen those people. I'm sure you have them in your family. They're so dramatic. You just want to say, oh my God, just stop, you know? Stop yelling, stop screaming, stop complaining, stop being so theatrical. You know, can you just be genuine? You kind of get this internal sense that they're acting. You feel like they're acting on a stage, right? You kind of feel like they're trying to get your attention and they don't know how to stop. I had a client like this maybe over 8 years ago when I worked in a residential treatment facility. I was so sorry I took the case on. I took the case on because my boss at the time needed my help, you know, and he came to me asking me to take on this case. He's like, you know, you're the one who has the experience with personality disorders in adolescents, you know, in young adults. Can you just take her on? And I said, okay, I'll take her on. I was so sorry because she came into my office right away at the first appointment, which we call the intake appointment. I'm really just getting information on what the needs are, why therapy at this time, why is she at this high level of care, of having to live on the premises because she can't do well in society. And this young lady, as we're going through the clinical data, mom is telling me things, dad is telling me things. This young lady breaks down in tears right in front of me. And my automatic go-to, you know, as an empath, if you will, is to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you know, and then I got up, sat next to her. I said, can I give you some tissues? Is that okay? She says, yes. And I'm sitting there, she's sitting with me. I'm sitting here, she's sitting on this side of me, and I'm having a conversation with her parents who are across from me. And she broke down and started crying, and then she's shaking and hyperventilating. And so I'm like this, I'm holding her back in her arm, and her parents are talking to me, and I'm really trying to help her hold herself together. And I felt myself, this is how you know that you were in the company of a dramatic person. I felt myself go from holding your arm in your back, okay, squeezing your arm in a sense to let you know, I'm here, I see you, I may not be engaging you 100%. I'm talking with your parents over here, but I'm here, right? And so this compassionate stance changed from this to, okay, I'm done. Because this child, she was 15, seemed to get more energy, more something. I can't think of the clinical term right now. Just her whole entire demeanor kind of drank up everybody's compassion towards her. And I could automatically feel on the inside of me at the time, when I stopped consoling her And my stance kind of drew back to where I was myself again, right? I'm not trying to console you. I had to psychoanalyze myself and help myself understand what was happening. And what was happening is I was losing the compassionate stance, because I now recognize that I have a individual who is not appreciating my compassion and calming down. They're actually drinking up my compassion and my empathy, and it's giving her gasoline and energy to up the ante. Can you kind of see that? Do you know that that can happen with these individuals? They are not the individuals who respond very well to empathy. They don't respond very well to compassion. They don't respond very well to you saying, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We're just going to work through this together. Okay. As long as you put effort in, as long as you have dedication towards getting better, and as long as your parents are here with you, we can get through this. And instead of her saying, yes, Miss Tamara, I understand, she escalates and she yells and she screams. And her mom is saying, she's asking her, why are you screaming? And this young lady said, because I'm so mad. And mom goes to hug her, right? She lets her mom hug her. And it seemed like she was calming down, right? And then she sits back down because she jumped up at some point. She sits back down next to me, and I can kind of feel her energy going down. I can feel her nervous system kind of resting. And interestingly, that only lasted for a good minute, because when she got the energy again, and when everybody's attention came off of her, she upped the ante again. And I realized this after several sessions. It took me some time, right? Because you guys, if you know who I'm talking about, if you know this kind of personality and this disposition, you know as well as I do that sometimes our automatic reaction is, we see a person crying, we see a person upset, our automatic reaction is, let me help you, here's a tissue, let me console you, can I hug you, talk to me about this, can I listen to you, what is going on? That's our automatic go-to response. But with these kind of individuals, these individuals who have a need for drama, they don't calm down when you put attention on them. It seems like they get up on a stage and they perform. They cry loud. They scream at the top of their lungs. They make interactions, physical interactions, instead of backing down and asking for peace. A person with this kind of a dramatic mindset, they egg on and they nudge and they nudge and they push you and they irk you and they do whatever they can do to get that big blown, overblown reaction from you so that they can then respond. The psychology of dramatic people is an interesting interplay between being highly sensitive and having very, very poor emotion regulation. They don't know how to regulate their emotions. And sometimes because of that, in addition to their nervous system reacting at a heightened level, they are very problematic, because the minute you take your attention off of them, guess what they're going to do to get the attention once again? When you take the attention off of them, they're going to jump right back into crisis mode, being loud, being angry, being physically assaultive, maybe even, threatening to kill you or kill themselves, or saying some things that are just off the charts. It doesn't make sense, because they need the attention back on them. Without that attention, they are not the star of their own show. They don't want you to be the star. So when you step in to console, when you step in to gain peace, when you step in to control the exchange, right? The interaction is the word I'm looking for. They get upset because you're doing something they don't want you to do, which is calm the storm. The storm is who they are. And they come through your life like a hurricane. And I had to learn that as a clinician a long time ago. And when I learned it, and I committed it to memory, and I understood the personality characteristics very well. I never let go of that because it's a very telling set of personality traits, and you need to know that, right? And especially clinicians, we have to be able to pause and psychoanalyze what is in front of us, and even you guys too. What is my family member doing right now? Is this a real emotion or a manufactured emotion? Is this a real reaction or a theatrical reaction? Again, it's a complicated interplay. It's an interaction. It's like a ball of confusion, right? So it's an interaction between being very, very highly sensitive. Most people can be highly sensitive, but these kind of individuals are far beyond just highly sensitive. They up the ante. So it's an interplay, this dramatic way of living between being highly sensitive and having very, very poor regulation of emotions. They tend to have, according to research on, people who have what we call histrionic personality, according to the research, they tend to have greater nervous system activity than most people. Their nervous system is constantly up here, constantly on high. And they don't know how to bring it down to a place where there's balance, where there's control, self-control. That's not how they function. They also tend to be very prone to overstimulation. They're not going to be satisfied with getting into a car accident, screaming at the person who wrecked into them, calling the police and going home. A dramatic person is going to get out of the car screaming, cursing, right? Blocking traffic, calling the police, calling family members to come down to the accident, right? And when the police gets there, they're yelling, screaming, and cursing. They end up getting arrested. They're screaming and spitting and kicking and cursing with the police. They get to the jail cell. They have to be restrained. Like, this is the kind of drama I'm talking about. It's not, I'm upset and I got to get this out. I'm really scared, or I'm really upset, or I'm really anxious. It's not that with these people. It's, I'm really anxious. I'm really angry. I'm really very much upset. But now I've got to take that emotion way up to 100, and I've got to add some things. I have to threaten to kill myself. I have to threaten to kill somebody else. I have to call the news and tell them that I was in an accident. There's always this really stretched reaction to reality, and it's so very nonsensical. It's inappropriate, right? These kind of people have a cluster B personality disorder, and I'm going to put it here. Yeah, absolutely. Shannon Duncan, I just saw you. Where'd you go? There you are. Shannon Duncan says, hello and welcome to the chat, by the way. Shannon Duncan says, I'm really entitled and unhinged. Very much so. Very much so. They feel entitled. They think that it's okay to act like everything and everyone is an idiot. Everything is a problem to them. If I can't get what I want, then I'm going to get on top of that stage and perform. And I'm going to fall out. Okay, I'm going to snatch my wig off. I'm going to go running down the street. If it's a man, right, he's going to curse and argue and just show a lot of aggression. They go from 100 to 200. That's really what I'm saying here. So these kind of individuals have a cluster B. I'm going to put this in the description box. Not the description, I'm sorry, the chat box. So they have a cluster B personality, okay? Cluster B personality is, you ready for this in case you guys aren't aware? It's anti-social personality cluster. We cluster personality disorders. The field does it stupidly, if you ask me. That's the only word that comes to mind for me right now. The field created these clusters. Nothing happens in a cluster. It's on a spectrum. Most illnesses and personality disorders are on a spectrum, but research has shown that we have clustered personalities into A, B, and C just to make them more explainable to professionals, to coworkers, and to people who are in need of services. But these clusters mean absolutely nothing. Okay. But cluster B personality includes antisocial, narcissistic, histrionic, and I always miss it, borderline personality. Okay, so cluster B, antisocial personality. So we're talking about sociopaths, somewhere down the line of sociopaths, narcissistic, of course, histrionic, and borderline personality. That is cluster B. And cluster B is the dramatic, overwhelming, very heightened emotional reactions to things category. And so histrionic personality disorder has been placed in there. These kind of individuals they cling to drama all the time. They cling to people and they pull them down and they contribute to their own downfall. They contribute to their own downfall. Why? They talk too much. They talk too loud. They argue all the time. They get arrested. They have tons of traffic offenses. They assault people. They're physically aggressive. They act before they think. They have no executive functioning. Everything comes from their emotions, right? Imagine a parent like this. Can you imagine that? I've had maybe one in my 16 years of being a therapist, one parent who has a histrionic personality disorder. And she was easy to diagnose for sure because she had everything. We're going to go through this later as well. All of the characteristics and signs of a histrionic personality was her, and it's really difficult for a adult child, a child, an adolescent to have a parent like this. Parents are supposed to stabilize the bus, right? They're supposed to stabilize the ship. Everybody is supposed to rely on mom. Everybody's supposed to rely on dad. But when parents are histrionic, there is no relying on your parents because you can't just go to them with a problem. You can't just talk to them about a problem. You can't just ask them a question without them exaggerating things from 0 to 200. And it's really hard to have inner security and stability when you are around people who are like this. They're constantly flying off the hinge. This is who they are. Again, they participate in their own downfall. These kind of people are emotionally reactive. We know that. They're not proactive. They don't try to contribute in a positive way to things. They're very reactive. They react. You might as well make that their first name. When you go to them for something, or you have a problem with them, or you have a question, a need, or maybe you're just with this person because you like them as a family member, you like them as a friend, just be ready for them to react because that's who they are. They react. Bring up something, they're going to react. Tell them a secret, they're going to react. They're not going to digest it. You're going to see a full-blown reaction. Arguing, crying, screaming, threatening, coercive behavior, being passive aggressive. There's going to be some kind of reaction in some form or fashion. They have a persistent and chronic need for validation all the time. It's so tiring. It's exhausting. Dr. I'm trying to remember what his name is. I think his name is Frankowski. Let me see if I can spell that better than I can say it. It's Dr. Dr. Frankowski. That's his name. And he came up with the term need for drama. And here's what he says. He's very interesting. He says he's from the University of Texas, El Paso. And he says the term need for drama is to describe and demonstrate a set of behaviors that includes a need for validation, outspokenness, impulsivity, outspokenness, impulsivity, and interpersonal manipulation. We're going to put that one in here. So interpersonal manipulation. So they manipulate in relationships. That's just who they are. And persistent, perceived victimhood. Dr. Frankowski from the University of Texas, El Paso says that the term need for drama demonstrates persistent perception of, what did I say, victimhood, interpersonal manipulation, impulsivity, a need for validation, and loud outspokenness. So let me add that. Loud outspokenness. There you go. In the chat box. This is who they are. That's who they are in a nutshell. And between Dr. Scott Loynes and Dr. Frankowski, between the two of them, they understand that this is like a personality trait. This is not a moment. This is not a momentary or temporary emotion. This is a character. There's a persistent need for validation. It's an established pattern of behavior. An established pattern of behavior. When something is established, think about a tree. Think about a tree's roots, right? They are established in the ground. You know, you could run a car into a tree and it won't budge. You can run a tractor trailer into a tree and it won't budge. Why? Because the roots are established. They are deep. They are wide. You know, sometimes a tree roots, I don't know if you gardeners out there know this, but sometimes a tree root isn't just in that area of the tree. Sometimes, and this has happened in my home, sometimes the tree is in the ground and its roots goes sometimes around a house, down under many areas of the property, underground, because it's a big, firm tree whose roots are well established, and it's going to be very hard to remove that tree. So it is the same way with dramatic people. They have established behavioral patterns. They have this lack of self-awareness, you know, this drama that they create, and they're naysayers, if you will, the drama that they kind of coach themselves in. You know, it's like they're trying to become an expert in being a dramatic kind of a person. These kind of individuals are this way because it's a part of their identity. It's who they are. They don't know any other way to be. They're also erratic. I meant to throw that in there. They're erratic. And it's so very hard to live with them. And it's so very hard to treat them in therapy as well. Did you know histrionic personality disorder, which entails all of what I just talked about, that is a very treatment-resistant personality disorder. Can you imagine why, guys? Histrionic personality disorder is a highly resistant disorder to treatment. And it's because it's really hard to get dramatic people to pause, think, calm down, right? Sometimes they also have narcissistic tendencies because it's in that cluster, remember? So sometimes a histrionic personality may also have a narcissistic personality. And so having those two things together, oh my Lord, you know, think about it. You've got this person who's grandiose and then they're very theatrical at the same time. Oh my God, I would just quit my whole profession if I had to work with people like that all the time. It's difficult. So in tonight's live chat, I'm going to go back up through the chat box and just welcome you and see what you guys are saying. When we get back into the content, I'm going to tell you some things you're going to want to know. I'm going to go over common behaviors in these individuals, primarily if this is somebody within your family. Then I'm going to give you the clinical diagnostic criteria so that you can look at what it is that we providers of care look at when we're dealing with a very, very dramatic person. And then I'm also going to give you a little bit of information on how this affects you. Because if you're growing up with somebody like this, you're married to somebody like this, or, you know, you're around somebody like this all the time, it's going to impact you, you know? Okay. Okay, let me go through the chat box. Precious V, I just saw what you said. I'm going to highlight you for a second. Precious V, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. You ask a question that a lot of people have questions about. So I'm going to normalize that right now, that a lot of us feel this way. But I'm going to share with you what my great grandmother used to share with me. And hopefully this can be helpful. First, I do not believe that God hates anyone or hates his children, people upon the earth. I do believe that he has plans that are always and often opposed to our own plans. I don't know why. I don't think anybody really knows why. But I think, as my great grandmother used to say to me all the time, your prayers may be answered. She used to say this to me all the time, and I would think, oh, I got to think of this one. Your prayers are getting to God, and they most likely will be answered. Not in the time that you want, not in the way that you want, right? And sometimes not at the moment that you're asking for them. They may be answered, but it may be 5 years until you see that answer. It may be 10 years until you see that answer. It may be 20 years until you see that answer. Why? Because he has a way that is very opposite most of the time to our ways. And so here we are down here saying, God, why aren't you listening to me? He's listening, but he's not responding in the way that you anticipated. And so that doesn't mean God's not hearing you. That doesn't mean God hates you. It means he has a different road that he's going on, and he's allowing to exist within your life. And so my great grandmother really made me think, and I realized at that time that the greatest lesson that I had was at a time in my life where I didn't feel as connected to God. But here's what was interesting. When I finally came out of the grief, when I finally came out of the pain onto the other side, I could look and I could see the answers to my prayers. I could see the growth within me that resulted from me developing patience and saying, okay, God, maybe you're not going to answer me right now. And I've got to be okay with that. And to me, you can grow from there. That's a place of modesty, right? Okay, God, you're not answering me. I understand you've got your own ways, and I've got to be patient, and I've got to wait, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to be grateful for the things I have in the moment that I wait. So hopefully that could give you some precious V peace of mind, maybe some peace of heart, knowing that maybe that's exactly what's happening to you, Okay, don't mean to preach. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. But I felt like I needed to address that precious V. Fairy girl, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Quarter moon rising, hello and welcome. It is good to see you in tonight's live chat as well. I see that. Hold on. Whoops. You guys are awesome. Just laughing with each other. Fairy girl, quarter moon rising. Good to see you. Bree, it's good to see you as well. Hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. My friend Smita, it's good to see you as well. Bree, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the super chat. I'm going to star that in the comment section. Did I star it? There we go. Thank you, Bree. As always, I appreciate you. Ann Pulsar, hello and welcome. It's really good to see you tonight. Ann Pulsar says, I'm here. My dogs are forming alliance against me and being needy. They are bossing me around. Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Honestly, I think animals are way more intelligent than we give them credit for. So they could be building an alliance. I really do think they're that smart. I really do. James McDonald, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Yes. He says, and be free from all the chaos and the drama. Yeah. Oh, I can't stand it. I cannot stand drama. AMB, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Bree, thank you so much for gifting other members on the channel with 5 memberships. You're so selfless. I really appreciate you. It's like every time you do something wonderful and loving, I'm like, what can I say so that she will understand that I genuinely appreciate your generosity? So hopefully you can feel that. I truly appreciate you. You're awesome. Ellie Wynn, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back in tonight's live chat. Scorpio Bird, hello. It's good to see you, my friend. MS, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for that. That's so sweet. Yeah, I hope this conversation can, kind of lend some different views of things to your experience. Lore Fed, hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Don One, good to see you in tonight's live chat. Carl Mullen, Keith B, Kev Dower, Blake Lauren Friday. Hello and welcome to all of you. And Blake Lauren Friday, it's good to have you. Welcome to the channel. I don't remember seeing you. I'm seeing some new people tonight. JKL Pop, hello, welcome. Joe Martinez, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. And thank you for the super chat. Joe says, I need to do this. I need to be here. I got free. I'm sober. That is awesome. 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 Good for you. It's good for you. Sounds like you're fighting back. Janine, hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. Janine says, does the loudest person get their way? Sometimes. Have you ever been in a grocery store like Target? Oh God, Walmart. I despise Walmart. The only thing I like about Walmart is seeing it from my back window because I'm driving off. I do not like Walmart. I will cry. I will avoid. I will make up excuses. I will procrastinate anytime Walmart is around, okay? And it's not so much the grocery store, it's the people that are in it that sometimes are dramatic, manipulative, sneaky, the list goes on. And so if you've ever been in a Walmart in a line, which I haven't been in so many years, curbside is my best friend. If you've ever been in a Walmart, a Target, a Best Buy, some kind of furniture store, and somebody says, well, this price doesn't show me that price. This was on my coupon. That is what I saw on the tag. You've probably seen these kind of people get their way. They scream, they cry, they threaten, they go out of the store and threaten to come back with a gun. That happened to one of my clients recently. Just standing in line. Here comes a guy, very unhinged, and obviously had a problem of some sort. Left out of the store angry, came back and said, you better be glad I didn't bring my gun in here. And he left back out of the store. Thankfully, he was arrested and he ended up on the news. But yes, I think sometimes the loudest people get their way. And guess what that does for them, Janine? Guess what that does for them? It positively reinforces. And in a sense, it's a positive reinforcement. Positive means it adds to them in a certain way, right? It gives them something. And that in and of itself can increase that behavior. It's disgusting. I don't like to see it. Fairy Girl says genetically predisposed and environmental factors from utero. Yes, it can be. Absolutely. Genetically, some people have nervous system arousal that is powerful and it goes up faster than other people, or it kicks in faster than other people. So yeah, that's the genetic and biological piece of the puzzle. And then you have environmental. Maybe mom and dad was histrionic and dramatic. Maybe you watched mom and dad act a certain way in public. And so now you're taking those behaviors into your own life. So you're right, Fairy Girl, genetic and biology, and then environmental, very much so. James McDonald, I see you. Yes. Excuse me. Excuse me. James McDonald says, I love reading on many topics. I have a mini library at home with a diverse and range of books that educate me and keep me company within these quiet and peaceful moments. Yeah, me too. Me too. I love delving into the mind of an author, but it really just depends on who the author is too, So yes, I'm with you, James McDonald. Okay, Leslie A, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Phil Bradley, hello, my friend. It's good to see you. Valerie K. Roberts, hello and welcome. Good to have you tonight. M&L Odell, it's good to see you. I'm going to leave your comment up there for people to see. Okay, let's keep moving. I want to make sure that I'm pacing this so that we can get to everything. Brandy Nounce or Nuance? I'm going to say Nuance until you correct me. Hello and welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you tonight, and thank you so much for that. I hope it can give you some insights, Cherry's Jubilee, it's good to see you. Haven't seen you in such a long time. It's good to see you on here. Hope you're doing okay. Dr. Dr. Right Life, excuse me. I'm going to put you up here. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Okay. Juby Joe, did I say hello to you? Hi, Juby Joe. Welcome to tonight's live chat. I feel like I didn't. I'm sorry. Coral Sky. Yeah, Coral Sky. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. It's really good to see you as well. Okay, let's keep moving. Christina Smith, give it a think. And there was one more person I saw on here. Where'd you go? Stacy Del Buccia. Hello and welcome to all of you. It's really good to see you tonight. Hope you're doing well. This is an interesting comment. Let me go back here for a second. Okay. My friend Smita says, those dramatic people are exhausting to be around. It's constant chaos. And literally, I wish I could underline that. Constant chaos all the time. This is who they are. This is their identity. This is how they behave. It's horrible, isn't it? Janine says, my concern with these people is that they cause legal issues and long-term trauma. Yes, yes, and yes again. The legal issues that they cause, child custody issues. Years ago, I really and honestly do believe, that some people, they spread the word about certain professionals. So I really and honestly believe that in my community, there may have been somebody that said, do not go to Tamara Hill, okay, for custody battles because she's going to ship you right out. I usually send them right out the door. When somebody calls me for therapy, okay, I always have this like phone call kind of pre-interview. I'm not going to get into it, but it's usually pretty brief. Let's confirm insurance. Give me a synopsis of what you need therapy for at this time. Let me know if it's for you or other family members. And, what are you hoping to get out of therapy right before I schedule them for the appointment? And sometimes I will hear a father say, I just want to get my son into treatment. He's been going through a lot. Me and my ex-wife are in the middle of a custody battle. Bingo, custody battle. Oh, okay. How long has this battle been going on? For the past 2 years. Oh, any reason why it's been 2 years to settle a custody dispute? Oh, because his mother is dramatic and she has problems and she has borderline personality and she's controlling and I can't get her to agree to anything. I see. Do you guys have a custody arrangement already? Or no, we're trying to get there, but we never can because she comes to the meetings and she's angry and she curses out the attorneys and we've been in court 900 times and I keep, she keeps filing motions and I keep filing motions. What do you think I do with those cases, guys? You know what? I'm sorry. I'm not an agent of the court. I'm not going to give you my records for a court battle between the two of you. Your son deserves treatment that is private and is really going to help him. So we're not going to do this. I suggest that you go over there. And so, Janine, let me tell you, when those dramatic kind of families or people try to find their way into my office just to get information because their own attorney told them to go get therapy, or they want to pull records from the therapist, I usually send them out the door. Why? For that reason, for those reasons, but also because they tend to be very dramatic. And they're just pulling in another professional, another service, because typically there's a primary care physician that's involved. There's probably multiple attorneys and judges that have also been involved. Police have most likely been to their homes and they have been involved. right? The school system is probably concerned and they've been involved. And so now you're reaching for a therapist. This tells me something, that this is kind of how you guys operate in your family. So Janine, you're right. They do pull you into legal battles because this is who they are. Now, other legal battles could just be, I'm going to sue you, right? I'm taking you to court because you took mom's estate over. Whatever the case, there's often a lot, and research does back this up. There's often a lot of services that gets involved in the lives of people who are dramatic. Not always because they're dramatic. Sometimes it's because they really need the service, but other times they're just highly dramatic, and they're going to pull in an attorney, a therapist, a PCP, primary care physician. They're going to pull in a neurologist. They may even go and pull up, somebody that can provide some other form of therapy, right? They may also have several therapists involved. Those are all red flags, of being a part of somebody's world who is dramatic, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for doing that. Okay. A few more comments, guys. Bear with me. Penny and Rose, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Mark Lee, it's good to see you back. Welcome. Danita Miner, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Okay, let's keep moving. I'm just reading somebody's comment. Hold on, guys. Bear with me. Ouch. Hit the wrong button again. I always do. M and L Odell says, I've seen people so addicted to gossiping, they will literally start telling on themselves. Yeah, that's so true. I've seen that too, M and L Odell. Let me tell you, my previous neighbors, oh God, this may have been like 3 to 4 years ago. Yeah, 3 to 4 years ago. My previous neighbors were so nebby. And I mean nebby, okay? And it started causing me to become even more private, Arborvitae trees. You guys know what those are. They're screening trees. They go way up. Sometimes they go wide, and if you get so many of those arborvitaes in one line, you've literally have a fence. You know what I mean? And arborvitaes became my best friend, when I was living in my first home 3 to 4 years ago. And I couldn't deal with my neighbors. Why? They were elderly people. But here's the issue. My property line was directly next to my neighbor's property line. So my yard was so many inches or feet, if you will, from the neighbor's yard. Okay. So it was a lot of land, a lot of greenery, but he wanted to neb into my world so bad. And so here's what he would do, guys. He would get on his lawnmower tractor, okay, his tractor, because there was no way to cut the grass any other way but using a tractor. That's how much grass it was. What he would do is drive his tractor way over to my place, right over to my yard area. Okay. And we're talking like 12, 13 feet from my home. So I didn't like the fact that he would come that far to get to my property. And he would hide, in a sense, on the side of one of my really big Moses bushes. And one day I happened to come out of my door and walk so many feet towards the end of my property line, and I caught him. What was he doing? Hiding behind my tree, my Moses bush. So it's a big, thick tree. So I almost didn't see him. He's hiding next to my Moses bush, trying to see who was in my driveway. I flipped. Not on him. I went in my house. I complained. And I got online, guys. He was very, very much a dramatic neighbor as well. I got online and I bought about 12 arborvitae trees and had them installed, and that fixed him. He could not come onto my property to neb in my business to see who was in my driveway. It was actually my brothers. I had both of my brothers visiting that day, and he thought it was okay to just come onto my lawn. come onto my property, hide and listen and look. And I was just so disgusted by it, guys. And I hated the nebbiness, the gossiping, the dramatic way that he was. And I just threw up a bunch of arborvitaes, you know? Sometimes you have to block people who are dramatizers, and naysayers and people who are nebby. You almost have to figure out, what's my plan B if they bypass my property, or if they bother me, if they ask questions that they don't have the right to ask about. What am I going to do, right? Anything a person can find, they will take it. A dramatic person, anything they can find, they will take it, blow it up, stretch it, and sell it to everyone. It's awful. I think those kind of people are really damaged in a sense. Okay, let me stop talking here, giving you guys all the context in the world. Access to Rome. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. I haven't seen you in a while, so it's really good to see you in the chats. All right, one more comment. Then we're going to get into the content. Yeah, M&L Odell says energy vampire, 100%. 100%. Give It a Think says these folks will knock you off your center and leave you. Oh yeah, that is so true. Leave you drained of your life force. They have problem for every solution too. Yeah. Yep. So very true. So very true. Okay. One last comment. Terry McKinney, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to have you. Terry McKinney says a covert narcissist can work its victim up to that kind of behavior too. So that makes them look like they're responding obnoxiously for attention. Well, that is possible. Yeah, not everybody responds in a good way when they are triggered. 100%, I agree. So you are very much right about that. However, keep in mind, and I'm glad you brought this up, Terry, because maybe I made a mistake. I should have at the very beginning deciphered between a dramatic personality who doesn't want help and a person who acts out because they are feeling threatened, right? There's a little bit of a difference there. A person who acts out because they're hurt, they're feeling threatened, they feel like somebody's pushing their buttons and they can't take it anymore. That's a different person from the person that I'm talking about tonight. The person that I am talking about tonight has an established behavioral pattern. Remember, I said it's like a tree, right? And its roots go deep and wide. So these kind of people are not just triggered by a narcissist or triggered by somebody and they act out this way. This is a common pattern of behavior in a variety of situations for many years. Or it's a pattern of behavior that continues and continues because of the same trigger. Does that make sense? So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, let's get back into the content. Ready, guys? What are the common issues here? What does psychology and research say about these kind of dramatic personalities? And I've seen this too. The number one thing is these people have very, very ineffective coping skills. They don't know how to breathe. They don't know how to stop. They don't know how to pause. They don't know how to take their time. And their executive functioning in the frontal lobes is very poor. The frontal lobes are behind the forehead. It's an area of the brain that we also call the frontal cortex, and it entails a little bit of personality development there, but for the most part, it's decision making, right? Being able to weigh the pros and cons of a decision, being able to be less impulsive and reactive, right? And having the ability to pump the brakes and question oneself and process what's right and what's wrong. So these individuals don't have that. So they have very ineffective coping skills. They tend to lead a very chaotic life. Very chaotic life. There's no structure. There's no rules. There's no boundaries. There's no structure. Have you ever seen family members like that? They live a very, very chaotic life. You can't call them without hearing kids screaming in the background. You can't go visit them without them falling out crying all over the place. You cannot have a normal relationship with them, quote unquote, normal relationship with them without them having a complete spasm. They don't know how to respond in a calm way. Right? They don't know how to process what's going on in a calm fashion, and they don't know how to organize things in the world. Everything is always in a big heap of confusion, you know? These kind of individuals, they have conflict everywhere they go. Conflict at Wendy's, conflict at Walmart, conflict at Target, conflict with the therapist, conflict with the husband, the children, the parents. It's conflict everywhere they go. I had a client like this a couple years ago, and the number one question I had waited so many sessions to ask her was, do you recognize that you are the common denominator in every single situation that you've gotten into? And she sat there for a second. I was very surprised because we had started working on learning to pause and process. Don't react, learn to pause and process. And so she sat there for a minute and she said, you're right. I am the common denominator. And I remember asking her, can we go back over some of the relationships that you say have fallen apart? Where were you the common denominator in every relationship? And so we went through that. But these individuals tend to have conflict everywhere they go. They have what we call this heuristic personality or nature. Have you guys ever heard of that? I'm going to put it in the chat box for you. Heuristic nature, personality. And an heuristic nature or personality, did I put it in the chat box? I think so. Heuristic nature really means that, there we go, that the individual has a chaotic, unstable, dramatized way that they interact in the world with other people. Heuristic nature. They're very dramatic in everything that they do. They're erratic. You know, they have no conflict resolution skills whatsoever. They tend to be people who just snap at the drop of the hat. You know, they can't just calm themselves down. They have maladaptive personality traits, meaning their personality traits are problematic. They cause problems everywhere they go. They never have a stable relationship. They never seem to be able to resolve anything. They tend to relationship hop because they stay somewhere and cause problems. They go to the next place and cause more problems, and they go to the next place and cause more problems. And it just makes life way more difficult for them. So they have maladaptive personality traits. They have a long history of failed relationships, and they also have a tendency to gossip, right? Just blah, 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 all over the place. And you can't tell them a secret because they're going to go right to mom and dad and tell what you told them, or they're going to go right to sister and brother, right? They're your other siblings, and talk and have things to say. These are the kind of people that you don't want to tell secrets to, because they're either going to tell your secret business all over the place. They're going to hold you in a place of, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotional blackmail, right? Because you're telling them things. So the minute something goes wrong, they're going to probably use what you've told them against you. And they're going to respond in an attitude and a disposition that is unnecessary. So we're talking about a person that goes from 0 to 250, not 0 to 100. We're talking about 0 to over 200. And that means that they're going to become very, very reactive, very angry, very impulsive, very reactive. This is just kind of who they are. They tend to ruminate, and they tend to be very controlling. So let's say, for example, your mom has a histrionic personality. You told her that you broke up with your fiance, that you guys are not going to get married, that you're going to be moving out of the apartment, you're going to go your separate ways. Your mom, having already told her friends and having a narcissistic, set of traits, she's upset with you. And she's upset with you because she told all of her friends you were getting married to this rich guy, or vice versa. You're a man getting married to a rich woman. She's already told all her friends. She's already ordered everything, just about. And now you say, Mom, I'm not getting married. What does that do? Well, that targets her narcissistic side of herself, right? Because now she's got to tell everybody the wedding is off. But in addition to that, she's going to respond in a very angry fashion. So she's going to be controlling. She's going to be domineering. She's going to be loud and obnoxious. And she's also going to think about this over and over and over and over again, ruminating. So it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're not going to be able to calm her down. Now, if we look at the clinical data of a histrionic personality, it's a train wreck, because here's what you're dealing with: chronic theatricity. Chronic theatricity, meaning they're very, very theatrical. It's like watching a Broadway show, right? So you're going to deal with that. You're going to deal with a high reward dependence. I'll put it that way. A high reward dependence. They have to be rewarded in some fashion, and they are dependent on that reward in order to function. So if you don't give them that attention that they desire, if you don't praise them and make them the center of attention, you know there's going to be a problem. Because why? They have a high reward dependence. They are dependent on being rewarded, right? And their way of being rewarded is getting attention, being heard, being listened to, being quoted, being praised, complimented. This is what they live for. They're eccentric, they're provocative, they're seductive, they're animated. These are all the clinical criteria. They're extroverted, they're loud and bold, right? They're dramatic in their storytelling. Dramatic in their storytelling. You know, I go to the mall and I got some shoes. Then I got in my car. I went to Home Goods and the at-home store. I stopped by the drugstore and I went home. End of story for most of us. Histrionic personality. I went to the mall and there was flames shooting out of the top of the mall, and people were running out, and fire trucks were there and police cars were there. I ran into the mall. I finally sat down. I was sweating bullets. My heart was pounding out of my chest and I could hardly see anything. But then it was a false alarm. Everybody came flooding into the mall. I had a terrible panic attack. I was hyperventilating. I had to beg somebody to take me to the bathroom so I could get some water on my face. But then the water was just a little bit of water and I almost died. And then when I finally got the water I needed on my face, then I had to run down the other side of the mall to go to JCPenney's, because that's where I had ordered. They were closed. So then I stomped and I screamed and they opened up for me and I went in. I tripped and I fell. It was an awful day and I really felt like I didn't want to live anymore. Histrionic personality. Here are all the details, drama, overstatements, stretching things, making things bigger than it really needs to be, right? You can literally hear the histrionics if you just listen, you know? For some people, like my mom, for example, she would probably be annoyed, but she would listen. But for people who understand the histrionics and what it sounds like, they have like this disinhibited behavior. They're impulsive, they're loud. You know, everything is stretched, everything is major. And guess what? This is also a piece of the puzzle that's really not that easy to see, which is they don't always have to be like I was just, demonstrating for you. They don't have to tell the story in a dramatic way. Oh my God, my light fell. Sorry, guys, if that scared you. They don't have to always be dramatic, right? And how they talk and how they sound, their tone of voice, but they can actually come across as dramatic and really all over the place and just boisterous and out there just by the words that they use. When I treated a histrionic client a couple years ago, this was the adolescent I told you about at the beginning. The way that she would tell me things was just exaggerated, and she would use these big words, Instead of saying her friend was really nice looking that day, she would say she's flamboyant with an eccentric tone, and she was beautiful and gorgeous, and she had this charm about her. Her word usage was very big. She had a huge vocabulary, but that was her histrionics at play. And even though she didn't sound loud, she didn't stretch things, it was her word choice that also showed me that she was histrionic personality. These individuals have poor judgment. They're impulsive. They have poor judgment. They have shifting and shallow emotions. Somebody who has a histrionic personality disorder may cry, and they may cry so loud that it feels like they're faking. And sometimes there may not even be any tears coming, but they're whining and they're screaming and they're falling out and they're crying and they're begging for tissues. And, even sometimes the way that they wipe their tears can be really dramatic. They can be really over the top, and it can drain the life out of you. They also have high suggestibility, so they are highly influenced by other people. They don't really have this individual way that they go about things. They pull from Billy over there, they pull from Kelly over there, and they pull from Donna, and that's their identity. They really do lack a firm identity. They are self-indulgent as well. They never deny themselves, and that's what makes them kind of what's the word that makes them kind of tiring, right? Because they're on the constant go. They get everything they want. They reach for everything they think they should have. And there's no shame in their game. There's no pullback. There's no pumping of the brakes. They just go right after what they want. And that can be so exhausting, They are treatment resistant. That's part of the clinical criteria as well, that it's going to be hard to treat. Histrionic personality. They tend to believe that their relationships with other people are closer than they actually are. So let's say you're neighbors with somebody who's a histrionic personality. They may grab onto you and start calling you brother, sister, or, maybe they are doing really sweet things for you and went in your back door without your permission and put something on your table because she felt she could do it. You guys are close, even though you've only known each other for a week. So these individuals think their relationships are way closer than they really are. They also tend to have very, very poor judgment and a poor perception of reality. So their judgment is off because their perception of reality is also off. They are loud and inappropriate. I think I said that earlier. Another clinical criteria is that they are novelty seekers. They have to have something that's going to stimulate them in a way that keeps them feeling energized. They are thrill seekers. They're flirtatious, and they also tend to be sexually inappropriate as well. That is the clinical criteria for a histrionic personality disorder. They are all of those things and more. Let me go ahead and give you some information on how this affects you. And I will go back to the chat box and we can wrap up then, guys. So let me just get a sip. Give me 1 second. Excuse me. Okay. How do they impact you? Number one way, I saw this in the research. I see this in my practice when I have an extended family member who's histrionic. And here's what I've seen. And here's what the research says. They pick fights. Do you know somebody like that? They pick fights. Their attitude is bad. Their attitude is disrespectful and poor. Their disposition is awful. They keep saying things to trigger you. They keep doing things to trigger you. They are completely inappropriate. And they don't know how to just get along with people. They pick fights. They pick fights. It's a manifestation of low self-esteem, a manifestation of insecurity, right? And it's also, you ready for this? A manifestation of boredom. I am so completely bored that I'm going to pick a fight with someone. And I'm going to pick a fight with somebody who brings up my groceries at a grocery store. I'm going to pick a fight with somebody who gets in front of me on the road without a signal. I'm going to pick a fight with somebody who's in a drugstore because they're hogging up the aisle. I'm going to start yelling and screaming and cursing them out and telling them to get out the way. The picking of the fights is a part of the personality disorder. It's giving them an opportunity to get loud. It's giving them an opportunity to stretch things, right? It's giving them an opportunity to be boisterous, to be out there, to kind of create problems, right? To kind of push along their persistent perception of being a victim. They'll do whatever it takes. So they pick fights. They desire excitement. Why do they desire excitement? Because of their central nervous system. I'm going to demonstrate to you just briefly what is going on in the central nervous system for these people. I think I should be able to demonstrate this without an issue. All right, hold on, guys. Bear with me. Do you guys know what the central nervous system looks like? Anytime I'm teaching adolescents or young kids, I always tell them this, that you want to think of the central nervous system as being the brain, okay, and the spinal cord. Spinal cord. Okay, so think of it like this. Whoop, there we go. There's the brain and there's the spinal cord. So literally the central nervous system is the brain, and then your spinal cord, which goes down the bony part of your back, right? The vertebrae. So that is the nervous system. The nervous system breaks down into two systems, okay? It breaks down into the sympathetic nervous system, okay, and system, if I can spell, and it also breaks down into the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So there's two systems. So the brain and the spinal cord is there, and it breaks down into two other systems. That is the sympathetic nervous system, there we go, and the parasympathetic nervous system. See those arrows? Sympathetic, parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system is like a gas pedal. If you are dealing with a histrionic personality, something is going to trigger the gas pedal mode that they are in. That's sympathetic nervous system. So what's going to happen? Well, their heart rate's going to go up. Their blood is going to pump faster. They may even feel dizzy or lightheaded. They start yelling because their heart rate is up. They're hot. Their blood pressure is going up. You know, they're getting these feelings of exhilaration because they're being stimulated. They have endorphins. You know, hormones change and shift. They can get kind of like this power and this strength in them in the moment, right? And so that's the parasympathetic. That's the sympathetic nervous system. Tamara, get it together, girl. The sympathetic nervous system is everything I just told you, right? Everything in the body kind of goes up to a higher level. It gets sped up like you're pressing your foot on a gas pedal. The parasympathetic nervous system is that part of the brain, that body that calms down, right? You have this almost like you're coming off of a high almost, if you will. You know, you've been way up here and then you're slowly coming down. Everything is slowing down and you're kind of feeling a little calmer. Your breathing slows down. You know, you may start to feel a little hungry. Maybe you even want to sleep and take a nap. You're just at a calmer place. People who have a histrionic personality disorder rarely experience the parasympathetic nervous system, rarely experience this mode. There we go. Okay. And they rarely experience that mode because they are histrionic. Their blood stream, their blood pumps faster, their heart pumps faster, their blood pressure is always up. They're constantly bringing problems into their life. They're constantly making very bad and dumb decisions. They're impulsive. So there's the sympathetic nervous system, that gas pedal mode, everything is always up here operating at 100. And they never, I won't say never, they hardly ever, I'll say, experience that mode of calm and peace. They may come down a little bit, but then they're going to go right back up at some point, because that is just who they are. That's a part of who they are. They really do attempt to provoke you. Why do they attempt to provoke you? Research in psychology suggests it's because they need you. They need you to distract from their own pain in their own life. They need you to give them an opportunity to snap out and be boisterous and loud and aggressive and just all over the place. You are that thing sometimes that stimulates that sympathetic nervous system. You get them pumped and ready to go. They have those feel-good hormones that are kicking in. They can be loud. They can get their anger out. They can get their displeasure out. So sometimes they will attempt to provoke you, right? They're also users. They're users sometimes. They just use you. They use you to distract themselves. They use your money. They use your kindness. They use your mild-manneredness, if I can make that word up. I think that's a made-up word, guys. They just use you, and you can feel that. You can feel that their shallow emotions are fake. They are not very genuine, and they are there to achieve some goal. So I used to tell some of my families, when an adolescent would kind of get escalated, I would say to the families, here's what I think is happening. Your kid has learned to utilize anger, resentment, hostility as an instrument. It's an instrument to get a possible goal achieved. So instrumental aggression. That's basically what it is. I'm using this to do A, B, and C, but so that I can get an end result in some fashion. They may also use you for attention. What I mean by this is, you might be attractive. Maybe you're handsome. Maybe you have the nicest car in the neighborhood. Maybe you're connected to quote unquote important people. Whatever the case may be, a histrionic personality is going to take your arm and say, hey, let's go this way. Or can I go this way with you? Because you're going to get me attention. You're going to make me look good. You're going to have access to things that I don't have access to. So they are very much users at times. They know how to, they know how to use you. It's just who they are. It's just how they were born, It's not a puzzle for them. It's not complicated. They know what to say and do to get you to bend where they want you to bend. They're also concerned, interestingly, some of the research showed this too. They're very interested in how you look. They're interested in how you look. So if you're attractive and you're dressed nice, or you're dressed in a clean way, or, maybe you get a lot of attention from other people, they want you to look the part, sound the part, dress the part, be the part, because there can't be any flaws with you, not while you're attached to me, because I need to look good. So you've got to look good so I can look good. And they're the kind of people that would go into a room and say, hey, this is my cousin. Do you guys see this? And they're very self-centered. They're selfish, and their emotions are shallow. They want the center stage. They're very, like I said earlier, theatrical. They have inconsistent love and affection. They don't know how to just love you for who you are. They love you, perhaps, maybe if they can feel that. They love you because you give them something. They love you because you're a listening ear. They love you because you look good and you do good things, and they want the attention. But let's make sure that the attention stays on them at all times. Think about a spotlight standing over their head. All of this is what they want you to pay attention to. They don't want you to look to your left, to the right. Pay attention to me. And when they're not paid attention to, they go off, they fly off the handle. Now they're mad. Now they're arguing. Now they're threatening. Now they're trying to threaten suicide. Now they're cutting themselves, right? I am not the center of attention. I've got to do something to get back into the attention, or the place of attention, the spotlight. That's basically what it is. All things must stop for them. You're not going to that graduation. I'm having a nervous breakdown. You're not getting on that flight to go to Hawaii because I'm upset right now, and you need to cancel it, and you need to be here with me. Or I'm not going to that barbecue unless you're going with me and do most of the talking. When you get there, what happens? They feel like the center of attention. You're no more important to them. They can take you or leave you at that point, you know? So these kind of individuals are tiring. They're chaotic. They're unstable. They're boisterous. They're loud. They're, like I said earlier, there's an interplay. There's a connection to really being highly sensitive and also having very poor emotion regulation skills, you know? Their central nervous system is basically, I'll put it this way, there's greater activity there for them than anybody else. Your central nervous system may be more normal, right? And it reacts throughout the day to different things. But for a person who's histrionic, they're constantly up on 250 in terms of energy, you know? So their central nervous system activity is way greater. It's more greater, or it's greater than your central nervous system, or I'm missing what the word is. Your endorphins, right? They have to have those endorphins just so that they can feel really good. They're in cluster B. These kind of individuals are in the category of cluster B. I'm reciting this with you. They also have a need for drama, which is now seen as a personality trait. That need for drama demonstrates that they have impulsivity, they are outspoken, they have a persistent, perceived belief system that they are victims, right? They are prone to overstimulation. They're problems. They don't know how to fit into society or into relationships in a way that is healthy, which is why they often participate in their own downfall, and they tend to cling on to people who are not expecting them to be this way. It's tiring, right, guys? I could not imagine having a parent like this. It's just really sad. I can't imagine having a spouse like this. Whoops. It's really sad, you know? All right, guys, you're going to want to see me tomorrow because we're going to talk more about this in bits and pieces of tomorrow's live chat. Let me look at what the topic tomorrow is. Give me 1 minute because I want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Tomorrow's chat, I hate that I can't remember my own scheduled chats. You know what I mean? Tomorrow's chat is on family coalitions, and feeling unheard and being ignored, and not being able to have a equal relationship with your family members. So you're going to want to come back tomorrow and see that. There's new terms as well. Okay, let me go to the chat box, engage you guys for a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Okay. Mark Lee says he's met dramatic dogs. They are hilarious. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I've ever met a dramatic dog. Unless they're like one of those little chihuahuas. Is that right? Am I saying that right? They're very dramatic. James McDonald says these individuals are fueled by any type of energy and attention, whether it's positive or negative. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The HR, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Miss Janine MacArthur, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back. Miss Janine says, my entire family, except for just a few, are drama queens and kings. They never want to hear about my life and try to cancel my empathy, always bringing up past mistakes instead. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes they're bringing up past mistakes because it gets the drama going, Remember, they're animated. They are highly dependent on being the center of attention. They have chronic theatricity. So they are theatrical when it comes to their emotions. They like to provoke, right? They have very poor judgment. They are impulsive. They are loud. They are flirtatious. They are self-indulgent. They're novelty seekers. So it makes sense, Miss Janine, it makes sense as to why they are the way they are. And then they go back and bring up past issues, like you've said. And most of the time, that's because that's how they get things started, It's horrible. It's awful. Valerie K. Roberts says, yes, and they will embarrass you almost on purpose. They enjoy everyone turning around to see what is going on. Yes, they will embarrass you on purpose, 100%. Yeah. I was somewhere in a shopping mall last Christmas, and I remember a young kid. She was the cutest little thing. She had to be around 9 or 10. And I could hear her saying to her mom, "Mom, don't. Mom, stop." And mom is on her cell phone in this quiet store where there's personalized sentimental gifts. And I'm like looking and trying to find something for my family. And this little girl, she's like, "Mom, stop talking so loud in the store." And then she lowers her voice so mom can follow her. And mom continued to yell and scream on her phone. And the child just kept saying, "Mom, stop talking loud." So they try to embarrass you. They tend to be very loud and obnoxious in public spaces. And it's just really hard to get them to just be respectful. It's not that difficult. It really isn't. Phoenix, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. That's so awesome. Thank you, Phoenix. I'm so glad. Phoenix says, "I'm not okay, but I'm here." Oh, Phoenix, I'm so sorry to hear that. Phoenix goes on and says, "I can't pay attention, but your voice always grounds me. I'm in such a stressful situation that I just stay dysregulated. I'm emailing you tonight. It's crazy." Oh, yes, feel free to email me. And I'm so sorry that you are going through a place where you feel like there's instability, and you don't feel like you're okay. Nobody wants to be in that place. I really hope things calm down for you and gets to a place where you can manage things a little bit better. We've all been there, right? Yeah. Phoenix goes on and says, just hearing you makes me feel safe, like a security blanket. So thankful you're on tonight." Oh, that's really sweet and really touching. Thank you for saying that. And I'm so glad, right? Sometimes we need those people that make us feel grounded to just say something, say a word, encourage us, do something to kind of make me feel like I'm in reality. Some of my clients are like that too. They'll come into session, especially my kiddos under the age of 10. They'll come in and they'll say, "Miss Tamara, I'm glad I came today." Or they'll say things like, "Miss Tamara, can we just play Uno this session?" And I know then and there, that's the moment when that child just wants to be in my presence. They want to coexist and they don't want to talk about anything. They just want to laugh and talk about Uno, talk about something they saw on television. And I welcome those moments. So I'm really glad that you feel safe in this space and on the channel. That's awesome. Okay. Let me keep moving, guys. Lily Lane, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. Lily Lane says, "Do dramatic people go on rages? My father used to scream at us, then turn away, happy and whistling." Yeah, they do. They fly off the handle. Sometimes histrionic personality disorder is also diagnosed with the mental disorder, explosive disorder. Oh God, why can't I remember what it's called? Intermittent explosive disorder. I had to give myself a half a second there just to get it. Intermittent explosive disorder. I'll put it in the chat box. Intermittent explosive disorder. That's a mental disorder, okay? And sometimes it is coexisting with histrionic personality traits. Intermittent explosive disorder, flying off the handle, yelling, screaming, threatening, breaking things, property destruction, putting holes in the wall, calling the police, fighting with the police, getting arrested, being released, going back home, and acting like nothing ever happened. So intermittent explosive disorder can sometimes be a part of the diagnosis of somebody who has histrionic personality traits. It's unnerving, right? They do. It's like a switch. What turns them on to that violence and what turns them off, And sometimes it's really hard to figure out what's happening here. It's really sad. Let's keep moving, guys. Penny and Rose says, "It's like opening a can of worms dealing with these types." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I agree. or it could be a domino effect. A domino effect, right? You say something, oops, you say something. Darn, sorry guys. Hold on a minute. I have to respond to this. There we go. Sometimes these kind of individuals, you will say something to them, you will respond to them in a certain way, and it really is, it's like pushing over one domino, and it's creating this domino effect. How when you set up dominoes, they all kind of like fall down at the same time. Same thing with a person who is like this. They tend to get offended, they get angry, right? You hit one domino, all the dominoes are coming down. And it's a really sad reality. And it's scary sometimes. You may not even know what triggered them, right? Okay, half the battle knowing is, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while. Half the battle knowing is says the Temptations told us about that ball of confusion back in the day. Yeah. The only reason I know that is because my brother was an actor in the movie The Temptations. And I was able to hear some of their music just from that movie. For those of you who have seen the movie, that's the only way I know that. That's the only way I know that. Thank you for sharing that. Half the battle knowing is. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while. All right, let's keep moving. Erica, hello and welcome. It's good to see you in tonight's live chat. And I don't remember seeing you. So thank you so much for being a member of the channel and welcome. It's good to see you. All right, let's keep going, guys. All right, I'm going to try to get most of you in tonight. Oh, I like that, Brandy. All right, hold on. Let me make sure I don't hit the wrong button and turn off the entire chat. Okay, there we go. Brandy, nuance, Karentricity. That's my new word, Karentricity. Oh my God, I'm going to steal that. I'll give you credit, but I'm going to steal it. Karentricity. Love it. That's awesome. I'm glad you came up with that. I like that a lot. Jeremy Robinson. Hello. It's good to see you. Welcome tonight. Jeremy Robinson says, sounds like my stepfather. Here's what's interesting. I'm going to put this in the chat box. Most psychotherapists, providers who can diagnose, we have a hard time deciphering between histrionic personality disorder, intermittent explosive disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and impulse. Is it impulse? No. I'm sorry. It is ADHD. There we go. So sometimes mental health providers, those of us who can, or medical providers, those of us who can diagnose, we have a hard time sometimes deciphering between histrionic personality, intermittent explosive disorder, borderline personality, ADHD. I'm going to send it in the chat box. And what's the other one that I didn't say? ADHD, borderline personality, histrionic personality, intermittent explosive disorder. I feel like I'm missing something. Anyway, it's in the chat box. I feel like I'm missing one of those. But it's hard for providers to decipher between which one we're looking at. So sometimes we will have to kind of put ADHD on the back burner. We'll have to put borderline personality on the back burner. We'll have to eliminate one of those disorders, intermittent explosive disorder, bipolar, because they all can kind of overlap and look the same, right? What if you're dealing with somebody who is in a manic episode, and their manic episode isn't just, I'm feeling really good to get everything done. It's, I want to kill myself and somebody else because I'm so much in a rage. I'm so angry, right? How do you decipher between that bipolar manic episode and an intermittent explosive disorder, which means you fly off the handle like that? And how do you decipher those two from borderline personality, which tends to have this sensitivity to being hurt or abandoned, which can sometimes trigger a rage? So it's like, it really takes a lot of education experience, humility and learning, and continual education to figure out how to decipher between all of those conditions. It can be really difficult. It can. Constance Noon, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to the channel. It's good to see you. Constance Noon says true and want attention all the time. All the time. Carl Mullen says they get annoyed from hearing you made a mistake, like it's part of them or something. They don't like mistakes. They don't like to be treated like they're unimportant. They like to be the center of attention, so don't ignore them. Don't change the conversation because they're going to get offended by that. They are just exhausting, Christina Smith says over dramatic. George the Gone or the Gone. Is it gone or gone? George, get to the gone. Okay, I tried. I'm so sorry. Welcome to the channel. It's good to have you. Get to the gone. I'm going to say until you correct me, says, my friend is married to a histrionic but doesn't know it. Oh, God. They will know it. They will eventually know it because if it's a true histrionic personality, those individuals are not able to cloak. They don't know how to cloak. They don't know how to cover themselves, So, nope, they'll find out. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. Bear with me, guys. You guys have so many awesome comments. I want to make sure that I get to some of you, or most of you, excuse me. Phoenix says, that's one of the personalities I have to deal with right now, and it's making everything a million times harder. Yep. Can you imagine being in a family where you have sisters who are histrionic? I have a client that has sisters that are very, very dramatic, and I just 100% feel like I know that her sisters are histrionic. They have a histrionic personality edge to them, and there's never any peace. Never any peace. Ellie Wen says, you cannot collaborate with them. Nope. Forget it. Once they're in their mode of theatricity, once they are theatrical and they're on stage and the light is on them and everybody is watching and listening, don't try to interrupt them. No, don't try to apologize. Don't try to make sure that they understand that you are sorry. Just don't even waste your time because they're not going to care. Scene 68, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Scene 68 says, I have an uncle that used to be like that. It made it very uncomfy to be around him because his histrionic personality with a combo of narc was too much to deal with. 100%. I totally know what you're talking about. Yes. Totally understand. Courtney Frazier, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing okay. I haven't seen you in a while. Okay. Bear with me, guys. Dr. Right Life says they are important and superior. You are inferior and unimportant. Yes, I'm glad you said that. 100%. Okay. Shannon Duncan says these type of people can complain all day long. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. Kev Dower says, try setting boundaries with these people. Here's the thing, Kev Dower. You ready for this? You can set boundaries with them, but you've got to set them at the very beginning. Because if a histrionic personality knows that they can run over you, what do you think they're going to continue to do? They're going to continue to run over you. And I only know that from professional experience, having treated two people in my history, in my past with histrionic personality disorder. I realized with the first client, which is the kid I told you about earlier, I noticed that my kindness, my patience allowed her to feel that she could get loud over me, that she could push me around, that she can minimize my position of authority at the time. And she ran with that, But I vowed to myself never, ever to let that happen to me again. So what did I do? The next histrionic client I had, I recognized that, okay, wait a minute. I know those traits. That's a histrionic disposition. This person, I don't feel on the inside that they are genuine. My heart doesn't feel broken or soft towards them as they're crying. I don't feel the need to get up and get a box of tissues and give them. I feel like they're playing around with my time. And so when that's the internal intuitive feeling that I get, backed up by clinical data, maybe reports from family, friends, bosses, the list goes on, I have to set that boundary at the very beginning of the relationship. Because if I don't set that boundary, they're going to run me over, you know? So Kev Dower, you can have boundaries with them. You just have to be able to set them right at the start of that relationship. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Well, Cherry's Jubilee says, borderline, most cluster B isn't very treatable. Well, you said, and other than borderline, excuse me, Cherry's Jubilee, most cluster B isn't very treatable. You can be treated for histrionic personality, but it's treatment resistant. What that means is, and maybe I should explain this earlier, you can go into treatment and maybe learn some things. You can go into treatment and maybe get medication for the depression and the irritability that causes the histrionic theatrical explosion. The issue is most people who are histrionic are interested in getting attention, being the center stage, controlling the conversation. It's hard for a therapist to teach somebody like that. It's hard for a therapist to say, now, wait a minute, I'm talking, let me complete my sentence, and then you can go ahead and say what you need to say. I've said that in the past to histrionic clients. Sometimes it's hard for a provider, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist to say, I want you to practice this homework tonight. They're not going to practice homework. Why? Because it doesn't feed their most deepest need, which is to be the center of attention, right? So they're definitely not going to do the homework. They're also not going to change very easily as well, because in a sense, when they get attention, they're filling that void and then they feel okay. Why would I want to change that? Anytime I'm not feeling good, anytime something happens, I just explode. I get attention. I'm the center of attention. And in a sense, it feeds me. So why would I change? So they're very treatment resistant, but it doesn't mean that they can't be treated. Now, narcissism is a whole other elephant, elephant and a zebra. It's going to be really difficult for them to be treated. Can they learn something? Yes. Can they get to a place where they say, my behavior caused that? But they're not going to digest and stay changed. Maybe they can digest some things. Maybe they can admit some things, but that's about it. So they are difficult. Borderline personality is really difficult. You have to have, as a therapist, as a treatment provider, tons of experience. And somebody that has a histrionic personality or antisocial, they're a little bit more treatable, but they are also difficult. So Cherry's Jubilee, you're right. It's really difficult for those cluster Bs to be treated. Can they be helped? Yes. Does it take a long time? Yes. What's our research say? Research says you can try it, but you have to know exactly how to treat them, when to treat them. You have to be able to understand their personality structure and have the experience to give them what they need. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, couple more comments, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Christina Smith says, my father would over dramatize his facial expressions and arm and hand gestures in the car to try to humiliate me in public, like we were in an argument. He was so embarrassing out in public. Yeah, that's awful. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You just want to say so bad, Dad, just cut it out. Please put your arms down. Have you seen people dancing to music in their car? Sometimes I see people, they're bobbing their head, One time I saw somebody do the dab, I saw somebody doing what do they call that again, guys? I'm not a dancer, but, they're doing all these dances, and sometimes I'll see it and I'll be like, okay, I totally get it. I totally get it. You were free in that moment. Totally okay. You know, but some of the ones that I've seen, they're not cool like that, okay? Sometimes I see people like throwing their hair around in the car, they're bouncing the entire car, they're screaming profanity and screaming at the top of their lungs in the car to a song. You know, one time I saw a woman, I was at a red light. The woman next to me was at a red light. Her window was down. My sunroof was open, windows up. But because my sunroof was open, I could hear everything in the car next to me. And she pulls up next to me at a red light. And she's got this really depressing song playing. And she is literally screaming, okay, belting in the car to the song, and she's crying and she's talking to herself and she's saying, I can't believe you cheated on me. And she's just screaming. And I'm just sitting in my car like, oh my God, I hope the light turns green right now, because she is overly dramatized. And, you know, I could have diagnosed her right on the spot as histrionic, to be very honest. That's how dramatic, you know, people who behave that way in society, you really have to ask two questions. One question is this an unstable person who clearly has problems and needs my compassion? Or is this a person who clearly has a need for attention? They are theatrical, they are dramatic, and they want to get attention from anybody, anywhere that they can. You know, I can be very understandable when it comes to a person who is clearly disturbed. But if you're a histrionic personality and this is how you engage, then my sympathy and my empathy goes down a couple notches. You know what I mean? Bree 420 says, Dr. Tamara, have you ever heard of chronic brain neurotransmitter disorder? No. I'm gonna have to look up the research on that one. I'll look up that one. Thanks, Bree. I'll see what it is. I've never heard of that in any of my days. Okay, Leslie A says, can this happen when an older partner passes away first? For instance, a spouse. It can. Yeah, usually pivotal moments in a person's life can make it, you know, it can cause it to be a little bit more expressed in the person than it typically is. Yeah. Okay, one more comment. Okay. One more comment. Mark Lee, maybe you're the last one. I know a minister, no congregation, who is this way. I believe he's also a narcissist. Had to go no contact with him and put a lock on my gate. I understand. It's kind of funny because I get it. You know, sometimes, like Mark Lee, you know as well as I do, sometimes the church environment kind of fosters that histrionic way. You know what I mean? I remember being a little girl, because my family is so diverse, I attended quite a few churches, you know. My grandmother went to an all-black church, and they are Pentecostal, which means they throw their wigs off and they run and they dance and they do all kind of like, you know, gestures to praise and to show gratitude and to get their pain out and to talk to God. That is the Pentecostals. I've also been to a Baptist church that was predominantly white with my family, and that was calmer, right? That was less theatrical. I've also been in a Catholic church with some of my friends. I will accompany them, you know? And so in every religious denomination or every religious environment, the pace is different, right? But what's interesting is in a Pentecostal church, you are likely to see ministers who are very, very expressive. And you do have to ask yourself, are there a few histrionics in this group here? Because I'm tired of seeing shoes flying over my head. You know what I mean? Or I'm tired of hearing the pastor scream and sing at the top of his lungs throughout the whole service. Sometimes it is a genuine praise, a genuine joy, a genuine release of pain. But other times it is too much. It is too much. So I totally get you, Mark Lane. I do. One last comment, guys. I'm trying to find a really good comment to end this on. Okay, scene 68. I think you're going to be my last one. Scene 68 says, it's like your energy is tossed into a pit of fire, dealing with aggressive, over-the-top dramatic people who want you to be in the fire with them. I agree. I agree. You'll see tomorrow in tomorrow's live chat when we talk about this is the similar topic to tonight. I'm going to bring it up that I'm going to bring up the point that some of these individuals do want you to be down on their level with them, and they'll do whatever it takes, right? And if that means trigger you, say something bad about you, gossip, spread your information, whatever the case may be, they're going to do it. Histrionic personality is a drama-filled disorder. It's a drama-filled set of characteristics. It's a behavioral pattern that is established very much like a tree, right, guys? Guys, thank you so much for being with me in tonight's live chat. I hope it was helpful for you and helpful to you. I hope that tomorrow's conversation will give you even more insight. So come join me tomorrow. Have a wonderful Friday night. I'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30. Good night, guys.